Hi guys, it's Arthi. I wanted to give you an update on how my treatment is progressing so far. So the update this time is going to be about RCHOP cycle 3, which is 3 out of 6. So just to recap for those who may have forgotten or those who are just joining for the first time, 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma, which is a type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And after being diagnosed, I made a lot of lifestyle diet changes and was able to watch and wait for 5 years. But this past December, I was told by my doctor that my follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma has transformed into the more aggressive diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. And since it was a very aggressive in terms of the growth, that it had spread to many parts of my body, and it was actually growing, and there were particular parts of my body where it was growing at a very fast speed, they were very concerned and I needed to start chemotherapy right away. So this past week, about a week ago, I did cycle 3 of the RCHOP, and just wanted to give you guys a quick update on that and side effects. So the chemo itself was as per routine. You go in early in the morning, they do your blood work. You wait until the blood work comes back, because they have to make sure that your red blood cell, white blood cell, and all your other counts are normal, along with, of course, you don't have a temperature, you don't have any signs of infection, blood pressure, and all those things are normal. They do the routine tests, the complete blood counts. You wait for that. I did meet with the oncologist before starting treatment, and he asked about how I was doing and how I was feeling, and I pretty much told him that there were random aches and pains here and there, but nothing unmanageable. So far so good. Did the treatment. Treatment went okay. One of the things that I want to mention is I have been receiving my treatment through intravenous infusions, and they normally find a good vein in my arm, and that's how I'm able to take the chemo treatment. And because of my age, normally people receiving this type of chemo, particularly the doxorubicin, which is the red devil, there are known, it does happen to people that thins out your veins, and so therefore they end up putting a port inside, which is normally in your chest, where there's more direct access to a big vein. In my case, what has been happening is they'll identify a good vein, they'll start the treatment there. During the chemo, 1 or 2 times, every time that vein ends up becoming, I don't know actually what happens to it, but the vein stops taking the chemo. So then they have to find another vein. And given that, again, I have good veins, I guess, they are able to find a different vein for me to continue the treatment. So I've not gotten a port, and I've been able to go through with that. So this chemo session went fairly okay. I also, again, got the Benadryl, which, like I've told you guys before, it never knocks me out. It barely makes me even sleepy. So I asked for Ativan, which in my case, it doesn't knock me out, but I do really believe that it keeps me from being nauseous during treatment. So I always ask for it, and I was given it, and I didn't feel nauseous during the treatment. The treatment was like last time. It lasted about 5 hours in total from start to finish. And, the Memorial Sloan Kettering facility has been upgraded. So the room that I was in this time was in a brand new building, and I had a beautiful view of the East River, lots of sunlight. So I was pretty happy sitting there, all things considered, just when would I ever in my life have 4 or 5 hours at a stretch to just sit and look at a beautiful view and read a book or watch something on Netflix. So, just trying to make a positive out of that situation. So I did that. And after the chemo was done, I have to admit that this time I was a little bit more fatigued than last time, than the last few times. So we got home, and like I've said before, the day of the chemo is just almost like a write-off. You're not going to do very much that day. This day in particular, I was a bit more tired. What I do want to say is, I think a few hours after I came home, once the effects of the anti-nausea wore off, I have to say the nausea this time really did hit me. I started to feel very sick, and the fatigue was there, so I couldn't really do very much that day. Not that I was planning any big event that day, but that particular day I just kind of was lying around, and so much for that. So the next day after I woke up in the morning, I really, really felt much more nauseous, and I felt very uncomfortable. They, during chemo, pump a lot of fluids into you. So aside from the chemo, there's a lot of pre-meds, there's a lot of saline. They just make sure that you're really, really hydrated, because it's very important for you to get all of that out of your body. So the chemo itself is doing its work. All the other fluids are basically meant to, when you flush it out, it flushes out your system. So it's actually better for your kidneys and your liver and all of that you get a lot of fluids. So starting the day after the chemo, I was drinking a lot of water as instructed, but I just felt extremely, extremely uncomfortable. I mean, I was nauseous. I felt so bloated. I felt like just general discomfort. Everything was there were like general aches and pains throughout my body. I felt worse than the other times, this time for sure. Specifically, I would say that it's the steroids. I mean, this is, of course, my assessment, and I can't prove it in any way, but I feel that the steroids, and I know this is what steroids do. I know that they control inflammation, and they're very important during the chemotherapy session, because they actually help with inflammation and all the negative things and the poison that chemo's doing. The steroids actually help undo those things. And I know it's a necessary evil, but man, those steroids, they really, they just bloat you up so much. In my case, this time, more than previous times, I literally felt like my face was just like a big giant cushion. I was like puffy. And my ankles and my feet were swollen. My stomach was swollen. I felt so bloated, and nothing would make me comfortable. And every time I drank water, which I know I had to, I just felt worse. And, I can't, it's just a general, it's very hard to describe, because it's not a throbbing or any sharp pain in any particular area. It's just very uncomfortable. And I was walking around the house trying to just make sure that, if that made me more comfortable. I was doing a little bit of stretches. I tried a little bit of yoga. Nothing really helped me. And I have to say, people say that steroids make you ravenous and make you really hungry. That did not happen to me, because I was so nauseous and so uncomfortable. I could barely eat. I mean, it does not make me want to eat whatsoever. I just wanted, if anything, to not put anything in my mouth. And it just, it's a very uncomfortable experience. And it's 5 days after chemo, and it can't end soon enough. One thing I want to say about the steroids is that since I've started chemo, I've actually gained 8 pounds. And let me tell you guys, I'm a foodie. I'm a food lover. But since I started chemo, I hardly eat. I mean, I do eat. I eat one solid meal a day because I have to. But I've become vegetarian. I'm having very little carbs, and most of the carbs that I'm eating are from fruit. So papayas, apples, guavas, oranges. I'm having lots of different fruits. I'm drinking lots of coconut water. So I'm not saying I'm not having carbs. And then in my meal, I'm having protein, vegetarian protein. So basically lentils, chickpeas, any kind of beans. That's what I'm having as a form of protein, or tofu. And so, no junk food. I'm really trying to control the sodium intake, so very low salt, sugar every once in a while. It was my daughter's birthday a couple of weeks ago. Of course, I had to have cake. But, other than that, I'm actually eating healthier than I've ever eaten in my life. And yet I've gained weight. I mean, it's like, and I really think it's because of the steroids. It's not because I'm eating more. I'm eating a lot less. I'm eating a lot healthier, but the steroids have just made me gain weight. And I hate to belabor this point, but damn it. Like, can't there be like one positive thing in this whole awful, nasty experience of cancer and chemotherapy? I mean, I could have at least lost weight, but let alone losing. I mean, I didn't even maintain the weight. I've actually gained weight out of this. So there's like no silver lining in this whole experience. But anyway, rant over. Sorry to go on about that. I mean, I know the most important thing is that the chemo works and it puts me in remission. I know that. But, I'm only human and I'm allowed to complain every once in a while. Another thing I wanted to mention, which is very important, and I did not know this before, and I started to only read about it once I experienced it. This time, with the chemotherapy, I started to experience a new symptom, which is neuropathy. And that basically has to do with your nervous system. And it's known that some types of chemo medication can actually lead to nerve damage. Now, because of what I have, and it's lymphoma, and it's basically a disease of the lymph nodes, and the treatment has to basically penetrate to your bone marrow, and it impacts sort of your entire lymphatic system and your defense system and all of that. It is not uncommon to have neuropathy. And in my case, the symptoms, now I don't know where the nerve damage is happening, but in my case, what happened is I started to experience dizziness. 2 to 3 day after chemo, actually, when I got up in the morning, I suddenly felt like everything was spinning around me. And then when I got up from bed to stand straight up, again, everything started spinning and I got dizzy and I actually had to sit down. Every time I would, from a seated position to a standing position, from a standing position to a seated position, or if I lay down and then I would sit up, it just, any type of motion like that just makes me extremely dizzy. And it's literally like in the cartoons where the stars are spinning around a person. It's like that. And it's like you can't do it. I mean, you're just going to fall if you attempt to move too fast. So I did notice that, and that is one of the symptoms of chemo, and it's related to nerve damage. And the other thing is I felt tingling in my fingers and my feet. And there was also tingling in my lower legs, so like around my knees. And so there was like a tingling sensation, which I felt for the first 2 days. But the dizziness is something that I have been experiencing for the last week. And that is since I've had the last chemo. And for that, basically, it's not gotten worse, but it has not gotten better. And I think it's pretty much here to stay until the end of my chemo. Of course, there's horror stories that I'm reading that people say it's irreversible. I really hope that's not the case for me. But I have to be careful when I get up. I have to get up very slowly. And what really helps is, like, if you look in the distance and if you keep your eyes at an object that's not moving, and if you keep your eyes fixed on that while you get up, it kind of helps, even though you'll still feel a bit dizzy, but not as much. But if you're just getting up as normal and you quickly get up, you're gonna get dizzy. And you know, that's something I did want to mention for other people that are experiencing this. It's also impacted my balance. So, you know, it's very the nerve damage can lead you to fall very easily. So don't be like standing on top of a chair to get something from a shelf, right, from high above. So don't do that, because very high likelihood that you're going to lose your balance and fall. That almost happened to me because, you know, I didn't think I'm going to fall. I mean, it's normal for me to get up and reach out for something. So I got up on a chair to reach out for a shelf, get something on a high shelf in our pantry, and I almost fell. So not a good thing to fall during chemo for sure. So the imbalance, also my vision has started to become impacted. It's a little blurry. Things are blurry. Definitely things at a distance are blurry. So I know this is not my eyesight issue that I've had for the last year, because I now wear reading glasses for the last year, and that's only for reading that I need glasses. But now with the chemo, with this neuropathy, I think I actually see blurry even when I look at a distance. So it does fix itself. If I keep looking at the same thing, then it does become unblurred. You know, it becomes focused. But things, it has impacted my eyesight for sure. So those are really the symptoms that I've been feeling this time. You know, I was told, and I have read, that this type of chemo, the side effects are cumulative and it gets worse with each session. So I'm bracing myself because I'm only halfway done. On the flip side, I'm already halfway done. So that's, there you have it. Those are all the symptoms that I've had so far. But, you know, guys, it's all going to be worth it, because I'm going to be better and I'm going to be in complete remission. And fingers crossed, there you have it. Until next time, ciao.